what's your practice like? What do you do, in your daily professional activities?
Good. A lot of the time I spend is working directly with clients. Laura, my wife, and I have a practice in Midtown East called the Center for Compassion-Focused Therapy. However, the work we do isn't exclusively compassion-focused therapy. We do a lot of ACT work, exposure and response prevention. So I see a full caseload, and then I do a fair amount of teaching and training and workshops and stuff. So I do a little bit of some research and writing, a little bit of everything.
All right, and you're one of the big names in compassion-focused therapy here, and you're one of the main trainers in that approach. At least
that's a cool thing.
At least in my opinion, you are.
Groovy, yeah. Well, there's very few of us, so it's good to stand out in that small crowd. But it's also a really valued part of the community. I value all of the ACBS community, and I think there's such a beautiful place, and ACT is such a beautiful approach, and I think CFT is such a good sort of sibling. They sort of, to me, they flow into each other.
They
and I love
mesh very well. Yeah. And I was thinking of asking you, what did contextual behavioral science change for you in your personal life?
Well, it's changed a lot in my personal life. It's sort of, if I could begin slightly with professional life, a little example.
Sure, go ahead.
Right, so I worked before practicing ACT and before practicing CFT. I worked in the American Institute for Cognitive Therapy in New York with Bob Leahy, and we had a Beckian cognitive therapy approach, and as a Buddhist practitioner, I always sort of did cognitive therapy slightly wrong, or at least different. I emphasized acceptance and care and interconnectedness and compassion just because that's my practice and personal philosophy, right? And so I noticed that each week Bob would sit and discuss. He's a master clinician. He's a really great guy. He would love you. You should meet him. And he would have these nuanced ways of approaching the cases, and he would have this way of explaining what the processes were that was very straightforward about schemas or this or that, which is a reasonable thing to do. But when I started to really dig into relational frame theory, RFT, and acceptance and commitment therapy, and also the CFT understanding of attachment dynamics, all of a sudden, what we were already doing started to have a language. Oh, there's dialectic framing, there's repertoire building, there's the soothing system. All these things kind of merged together in a new and kind of exciting way. And I thought, wow, I can understand this differently. And the idea of authoring values and living from a place of acceptance and compassion and this beautiful community kind of changed my whole personal life, because I had different friends. I started to make different choices about what I do with my time. So my community changed, my friendships changed, my way of conceptualizing, everything really.
Wow, amazing.
It was pretty cool.
Great. And what have you been presenting at the conference so far?
So far, let's see. This morning was a really exciting workshop, which was called Act Like a Buddha, Act Yoga, Act Dharma, Act Life, and we sort of made it playful and not about illness or psychological problems, but about cultivating personal awakening through physical embodiment practices of yoga and Buddhist scripture, actually, and Laura did some compassion work, and that was with Tim Gordon and my wife, Laura Silverstein Tirch. And then Paul Gilbert and I did a pre-con, and then we've got some panels and things, mostly around compassion, attachment, and Buddhism and things like that.
So you keep very busy. Do you already have a bit of an idea what it is that you might be submitting for next year's conference in Montreal?
Yes, actually. We've been thinking a lot about that. I mean, we're really excited about the Montreal conference. It's a wonderful, accessible place geographically for people in North America, and I think also in Europe, and it's kind of culturally inclusive and open, and I haven't yet been to Montreal, but I hear it's fantastic, wonderful. I know the people there are really fantastic. So I think we're probably going to be working around expanding this understanding of how we can work with attachment and affiliation in ACT, expanding our work around compassion and unpacking like an RFT analysis of deeper sort of meditative practices. And I'd really like us to be building in the yoga piece more. We're going to be doing a 2-week mindfulness, yoga, and ACT training with Tim Gordon and the people at Praxis. And I think there's some momentum building with that, so that probably we'll do a workshop or a pre-con that involves yoga and CFT and ACT next year. That's the thought anyway.
That would be super interesting.
Cool.
And I'm pretty sure the people of Quebec, the people of Montreal would be super interested in attending that sort of a workshop. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Cool. Great.
And is there anything that you would like to tell the clinicians, psychologists, mental health workers of the province of Quebec, a year in advance of the Worldcon in Montreal?
I think if I were speaking to other CBS people, most of them would already know the flavor and the quality of this experience at a conference. And if I were to do a perspective taking task and imagine that I were watching this video, I would probably be, if it were totally new to me, I would be a little dubious when they're talking about compassion and acceptance and meditation and everybody's sort of glowing. I would think, what's the deal? Everybody really loves this conference. Like, what's going on? Is this salesmanship? And the truth is that I've been to ABCT, APA, I've been a part of many different movements in psychotherapy over the last 20 years. And this is a special place and time and community for rigorous, scientifically founded, and heartful advances in psychotherapy. So if a mental health practitioner in Quebec and or Montreal wanted to find a place to, in an open, vulnerable, safe, accepting environment, advance their scientific understanding of how to help clients turn towards suffering and live lives of meaning and purpose and vitality. This is a really, really beautiful environment in which to do that, to take a week out of your year, a few days, and this kind of speaks to your experience, doesn't it? I'm assuming.
Definitely,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the conferences are, and I was talking about it just a few minutes ago, a great opportunity to learn, a great opportunity to better ourselves as clinicians, as researchers, as professionals, and as people, period.
Right.
And also a great, amazing way to make friends, to network, to meet new people, and to create very meaningful, deep relationships with new people.
Absolutely.
So yes, everything you said, it perfectly resonates with my own experience.
Beautiful. Cool.
So unless there's anything else that you wanted to add, I'm just going to thank you very deeply for the time you just granted us, Dennis.
Thank you.
I am absolutely persuaded the people of Quebec will be very, very happy to hear what we just discussed about. And I hope many of them will be joining us next year in Montreal.
I hope so too. I hope you join us. Thanks a lot. Okay. Cool.
Thanks.
Hey man, thanks a lot for asking.